Good morning. It is Monday, January 3rd, 2022. Happy New Year, everyone. And I'll call to order the Story County Board of Supervisors meeting. Please stand if you're able and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, is there any changes to today's agenda from anyone? I do believe that we will be potentially moving item number 7 to next week's agenda due to a scheduling conflict. But otherwise, if there are no changes, we'll do a motion to adopt today's agenda.
I move approval of today's agenda with the mentioned change.
Second. Then moved and seconded. Basil? Aye. Merkin?
Aye.
That is aye. Next of the time is for public comment number 1. This is the comment period for the public to address topics on today's agenda. If there's anyone who'd like to make comments on today's agenda, if you're on Zoom, will you please use the raise hand function so that we can unmute you? Or if you're in the public meeting room, please move forward and we'll have you speak before the board. Anybody, right? Okay, we are not seeing anyone to public comment, so we will close public comment. Next, we're up for organization of the board. First, we have election of officers.
I would move to elect Latifa Faisal as chairperson for calendar year 2022.
Seconded. Second. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Merkin?
Aye.
Basil? Aye. Evans? Aye.
I would move election of Linda Merkin as vice chair.
And I'll second. Any further discussion? Basil?
Aye.
Merkin?
Aye.
Evans? Aye. And then do we move on to set the day and time of regular meetings?
I would move to set the 2022 schedule for regular board meetings as Tuesday at 10 a.m. with the option to modify as necessary.
Then moved and seconded. Merkin?
Aye.
Basil?
Aye.
Evans? Aye. Now, I think we need to switch places. Is that correct?
Okay. Is it okay if we just go to the next one with that for the limited agenda? I left that on my desk, I'm so sorry.
I did too.
So,
No,
I got it.
I should move it. I'll move the definition of the limited agenda as follows. No public hearings, no additional items, no agency or department reports, no other reports, and that the chair may make exceptions.
Second.
Then moved and seconded regarding the definition of a limited agenda. Merkin?
Aye.
Basil?
Aye.
Evans? Aye.
Now you can move.
Doesn't matter what side we're on.
Sorry.
Yeah, I have to push down the chairs. Okay, so,
So item number 8, we have proclamation recognizing January 2022 as Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. in recognition of January as National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month, January 2022, whereas human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery, victims of human trafficking are subjected to force, fraud, or coercion for the purpose of commercial sex acts and/or forced labor. And whereas human trafficking is occurring throughout the world and is commonly regarded as one of the most pressing human rights issues of our time, and whereas human trafficking affects every community in the United States and is not limited by age, gender, ethnicity, or socioeconomic backgrounds, and
whereas human trafficking goes against basic human rights and there is a vital need to eradicate this crime, and whereas law enforcement, federal and state agencies, nonprofits, social service providers, private industry, and non-governmental organizations are working to end human trafficking in the United States, and
whereas Story County has developed the Story County Human Trafficking Response Team in an effort to address and eliminate human trafficking in our county, and the members strive to protect the citizens of this county from human trafficking. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Story County Board of Supervisors, do hereby proclaim January 2022 as National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month, and encourage all citizens of Story County to stand with the Story County Human Trafficking Response Team and all other organizations whose mission it is to end modern day slavery and exploitation in Iowa and in the United States. I move adoption of the proclamation.
second.
it's moved and seconded. Merkin?
Aye.
Evans?
Aye.
Basil? Aye. Thank you. And I believe we have representatives from the Story County Attorney's Office here for a photo.
Spread out line. In the front.
Okay, 1, 2.
It's
Thank you. Thank you. Pardon?
I put each other kids.
Cheesy?
Cheesy.
Sorry, bear with me while I try and get my bearings here. Okay, next we have agency reports. We have nothing for agency reports. Consideration of minutes from December 28th.
Oh, excuse me, I move approval of the December 28th, 21 minutes as presented.
Thank you. Second. Moved and seconded. Hens?
Aye.
Merkin?
Aye.
Basil? Aye. We have consideration of personnel actions.
I move approval of personnel actions as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Merkin?
Aye.
Hens?
Aye.
Basil? Aye. Consideration of claims from January 6, 2020.
I move approval of claims as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Hens?
Aye.
Merkin?
Aye.
Basil? Aye. Consent agenda. Is anyone pulling anything from consent? Motion.
I move approval of the items as presented in the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Merkin?
Aye.
Hens?
Aye.
Basil? Aye. We have public hearing items. We have no public hearing items. Additional items, discussion and consideration of appointment of supervisors as representatives for calendar year 2022. did you want to go through each of them?
I don't need to, I have one correction.
Okay,
The Iowa Creek Watershed Management Authority, Leanne Carter, should be listed as an alternate.
number 16.
Number 16, yes.
Any other changes or?
I'm fine with whichever. and switch around anything. I'm flexible, so.
I am too, and
Whatever
I-
people's secrets are, or
I feel like I'm just kind of settling into all of the boards that and committees that I'm serving on. So I'm fine staying there. I'm also fine moving to something else if there's something one of you would rather be doing.
I'm fine with staying the way things are. You know, we always can change appointments mid-year if something comes up and we say this really isn't working, or timing of the meeting. Sometimes you end up not realizing, you know, meeting moves and you've got two at the same time, but I'm fine with sticking with these.
I would move approval of the appointment of supervisors and representatives for calendar year 2022 as listed with the correction noted.
Second,
Moved and seconded. Edens,
Aye.
Merkin,
aye.
Basil, aye. That's easy. Consideration of resolution 22-43, 2022 Central Iowa Regional Transportation Planning Alliance appointments.
This is simply because CERCA requires, they like to have their own form, so they send us a form. So I would move approval of the resolution.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Merkin,
Aye.
Edens,
Aye.
Basil, aye. I believe we'll have something from CERHA like that as well. We just haven't received that yet. Discussion and consideration of direction on chapter 64, aquatic facility, and resolution 22-47, setting a date and time for public hearing for January 18, 2022 on first consideration ordinance number 301, aquatic facility.
Lily Grandinetti, Director of Environmental Health. We just wanted to bring our aquatic ordinance that we wrote for you guys' review, to have a chance before a public hearing is set to answer any questions you might have, things like that. The ordinance basically started back in 2019, but due to COVID and other ordinances that needed to jump ahead, it did get delayed. So just so you guys have an idea, we are this ordinance adopts chapter 15 of the Iowa Administrative Code, swimming pools and spas by reference. And in addition to that, the ordinance that we have, basically we've included some definitions that aren't included or very well spelled out in the Iowa code. We added the requirement of carbon monoxide detectors when applicable, additional public signage requirements, along with the items that staff have observed as repetitive violations or concerns regarding health and safety over the last several years, and we've had trouble getting compliance. And so it's kind of why the ordinance was created, and is to help us with some of those enforcement issues. We did have a stakeholders meeting on December 13th that went, all of the facilities that we regulate were invited. I think we had probably about 10 people show up, and we had some on Zoom and some in person. We had very positive feedback on why we were doing the ordinance. And then just had some basic questions regarding, clarification on some things, and some feedback that they were concerned with. And we did make some minor modifications based on those comments and stuff like that. And those have since been reviewed, and we sent them out and haven't received any other feedback. The Board of Health did a vote on December 21st unanimously to approve the ordinance and pass it on to you guys for review and to set a public hearing date. So with that, I do have Matt here if there's any technical questions on some of the inspections and some of the things that we have, but wasn't sure what kind of, if you had a chance to review the ordinance, if you have any questions.
Kimberly, I read through the ordinance, and I remember this is a question asked with the Board of Health. What were some of the minor changes that were requested that you did? And then my other comment is, if I recall, you have to have all the pools inspected by the end of May. Is that right?
So yeah, so some of the questions that came out of the stakeholders meeting, originally we were going to have every facility post their daily test results. And some of the facilities were concerned about how they would logistically handle that and wanted to understand why. And we explained that it's because we had some places that had repetitive issues and we were having trouble getting compliance. So we did go back and reword that so that it didn't apply to everybody, but just when we find facilities that need it, we have an enforcement tool that we could apply. So that was one of the big changes that we made from our, as far as a modification goes. There was also, we define a responsible person, somebody who is not the certified pool operator. And we talk about the type of training that they have to have. And there was some of the wording in there was that they had to know how to do specific actions. And the facilities were like, well, we have that divided up between some people, so it'd be better. Our intent was that they know when they need to call for help and that they know what the problem is. So we modified that so that they wouldn't necessarily know how to technically like change a filter out. They would know, hey, this is not right and we need to call somebody. So we made that modification based on what the facilities were concerned about. And then the other things they had were questions on, we have a daily inspection pre-checklist that they use now. And they wanted to know, we had to create a checklist that applied to all facilities and we have different types. And so some of them were concerned was, hey, if we don't do this, how do we, do this on our checklist and still be in compliance? So we went through some of those clarifications on how we'd work with them. And then just some general definitions that they wanted to understand. And there was also a couple of typos that a couple of them found. And so we fixed those. So that's always nice to have those extra set of eyes look at it. But that's as far as the stakeholder meeting, those were the concerns that came out of that and the modifications that were made. Is your other one was?
No, my other question was, by the end of May, I think probably you have all the pools inspected by.
So when is our contract? I think it's on the fiscal year.
Yeah, our contract goes by fiscal year, but at least once annually is what the contract states.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, and then we wanted to have it implemented in February because that's when we start doing a lot of our indoor inspections is like the end of February and March. So this would give us time to get this enacted and have everybody using the same ordinance for the year.
Great. Thank you.
I think that was a really good fix, the landing on just having those who are not in compliance posting their results or their information daily. It does look like there's one more typo on each side. The fifth bullet point, just a B needs to be added to be familiar.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Thank
And then I
you.
meant to send you an email ahead of time. I'm like, oh dear, I forgot. But it's really thorough, really clear too. Did you have any questions?
That I'll make the motion to I'll make a motion for the direction of chapter 64 of the aquatic facility in resolution 22-47, setting the date and time for a public hearing for January 18th, 2022 for first consideration of ordinance number 301.
Second.
Moved and seconded, Hens?
Aye.
Merkin?
Aye.
Basil? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to discussion and consideration of Story County COVID-19 vaccination, testing, and face covering policy in response to OSHA's emergency temporary standard on vaccination and testing.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. I do have, I can talk to this
You guys have your copies. I brought new copies. Nothing really was changed. But highlighted. I've got one for you too, Shelley. Okay. So just a little background is OSHA did issue an emergency temporary standard on vaccinations and testing in response to COVID-19. This policy is in response to that ETS, that emergency temporary standard, ETS, sorry. That standard says that the employers with 100 or more employees have to have a policy on this. So just a little background, the policy, if you read it, it pretty much looks like OSHA's policy. They have a sample out there. And in order to comply with it, I took that sample and just added Story County. And there weren't many changes that I added to that. The main thing is if this does become effective, I know they're going through the courts. We need, in order to comply, I want the correct language in the policy so that they can clearly see that, yes, Story County complied with this ETS. So I don't know if you want any more information, if you want to go through some things. I know there were some suggestions and we can go through that. I know Ethan Anderson is on the Zoom also. He said he was going to join this morning. And he probably has more information as far as the legal. I know the Supreme Court is hearing oral arguments, I believe, on January 7th on this. But that as of after January 10th, OSHA can start, as of right now, OSHA can start citing employers after January 10th on the policy piece. The testing piece is not until February. So there's more time on that piece. Sure, sure.
You say, and I think you still say this, that all employees must complete.
That affidavit or that
Yeah,
form,
and the affidavit says,
it's got the dates on there. Yep.
I attest I am either fully vaccinated or partially vaccinated against COVID-19 and am unable to produce proof of vaccination. If I've given you my vaccination card, I've given you proof of vaccination. Why do I sign a form that says I'm unable to provide proof?
We can change that. The only thing is the certification at the bottom, saying that it's accurate and true.
Okay, I think that you need to take the, and I'm unable to provide proof of vaccination off of that form. Because I couldn't sign it, I provided proof. That doesn't make sense. So, do you understand what I'm saying?
So you're on.
I'm on appendix A, employee
Sure.
attestation of COVID-19 vaccination status. The
Oh,
first sentence.
unable. Sorry, it should, and am able to.
And am able.
That's the attestation.
Yeah, so it's gonna say and am able, not am unable, is what you're saying.
So what if you're unable? What do you do then? You have two separate forms.
I wonder if we need two forms. I went back, I don't want like 20 forms. I need something that says they're vaccinated and then they attach they certify that their statement about vaccination is true. It's either that or they can send in a copy of the card.
Well, that's why I say, well,
Yeah.
if you have a copy of the card, why do you need
They can just turn that in. So we can update that.
Yeah, why don't you just say that if you provided the card, you don't have to do the attestation form?
Okay.
That's, yeah, evidently.
I can update that form too. Yep.
And am I right that boosters are not required by the ETS?
At this point, it's not included in there. It's included in different guidance that CDC issues, but the ETS came out before a lot of the boosters. So nothing, I've checked, I haven't seen that. Not to say they won't update that, but as far as I can tell, there's nothing in there about the booster.
Did you change, and I'm trying to go through this. 'cause I've
Sure.
seen changes. Did you change the isolation guidance?
I haven't, I wanted to talk about that.
Okay, Because the CDC is now saying 5 days.
They are, and they're also saying they might add a negative testing component to it, I heard.
Heard that this morning.
So I don't know how we want to word that. I mean, I think they want it, the OSHA says you need to have something in there about isolation. When this came out, it was 10 days.
Mhm.
I did add if their guidance changes that we go with current guidance. So I don't know if it's enough just to say we go with current CDC and IDPH guidance. The problem is it keeps changing.
Right. Right.
Why don't
So
you say under CDC's that asymptomatic employees returning to work will be covered under CDC's isolation guidance and will keep employees updated as it changes. Otherwise, you're gonna be changing this all the time.
well, that's
Well,
yeah, that's why I added.
But to have, but I think it's
Confusing if you
misleading
have the
having
10
something
days.
in here that's no longer current. People stop reading at the
Mhm.
end of the bullets. I know it's real frustrating because it does change. so
Well, they
much.
hadn't updated their website yet.
Yeah, it still says 10 days.
10 days. There's a media release that says 5 days from the CDC.
It's been all over
Was the
the
5
news.
days for everybody or was that one for medical purposes?
The general public is what
Okay,
it said.
I just couldn't
If
remember.
you're no longer symptomatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was also something about unvaccinated people needing to wear a face covering for 5 days after their isolation. Did you hear that?
That's even if I think you don't have your booster.
Oh,
Uh-huh. I think. I need to double check. But
Yeah, I
the
think you're
isolation is you
right.
could come back after 5 days, but you have to wear the face covering for the 5 days following.
so it's either you're not vaccinated or even if you don't have. the
I'll double check.
Okay.
And I could be getting that confused with if you've been exposed
Yeah.
piece.
I
They
think
changed that too,
Yeah. I think the face covering for 5 days is.
is there
you can
regardless.
You can return it 5 days, but wear a face covering.
So regardless of vaccination status. I believe
that's
that's how it is, but we'll have to. I don't think we want to spell everything out. I mean, I don't,
Even if you do, they're gonna change it.
they're gonna change it and then we're gonna have
That's
to come
why
back.
I'd really suggest you just say, we'll follow CDC's isolation guidance regarding asymptomatic employees returning to work, and we'll keep staff updated. Because like I said, I just think if you have information in here that's no longer accurate and people don't read all the way.
So, and I know this, because I've looked at it so many times, but are symptomatic also 5 days or are they just 10 days? So asymptomatic is 5 days, right? You've been exposed. I'm just saying, it's all of it.
You can't return if you're symptomatic.
You mean if
Right,
you're
right.
exposed or if you test positive?
So if you test positive and you have no symptoms, asymptomatic, then you're out for how long? 5 days.
My
If you
understanding
have
is
symptoms,
5 days and the symptoms have to be improved and you have to wear a mask.
okay, so it's still both 5.
I think it's both
days
5
or
days.
Either, but if you're still not feeling well, you can come back after 5 days, but you have to wear a mask that entire time. That's what I'm just thinking clarification on.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I would think you'd wait. till you're
Symptoms
feeling
have to be
better.
improved.
Improved.
Symptoms have to be improved. You still have to be fever-free. Again, they haven't updated their website. It's
Right.
just the media release. So it's a little more difficult
Yeah.
to get through. But I mean, we could say something like using current CDC's isolation guidance. I just didn't know if we needed the actual current guidance in the policy and then make a statement if it changes, or if we can just say that to comply. We can just say current CDC's for both
think that's
asymptomatic
probably
and
I
symptomatic.
think it's gonna change it. It's gonna keep changing. As they learn
Okay.
more, I mean, that's what happens. Medical advice changes as more is learned. Right. We're still learning about it. Another question I have under the COVID-19 testing, and again, I haven't caught up to see if we changed it. The second paragraph, third paragraph, any employee who does not report to the workplace during a period of 7 days must be tested within 7 days prior to returning to the workplace at a county designated site. What if somebody's on vacation and is coming back from vacation a couple of days before they're going to return to work? They can't necessarily then test 7 days prior to returning to the workplace at a county designated site. I mean, they're traveling. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
What page are you on?
Well, it's page 6 on what I have. I'm not sure where it ended up on the, where Melissa just handed it out. It's under COVID-19 test.
Gotcha.
It's on page 6 and it's the third paragraph. Any employee who does not report to workplace, and it's A that I was thinking about.
And I think, so this is directly from theirs. I think it means that they just have to be tested prior to return, and it has to be like, they can't have been tested 2 weeks before return. It has to be within 7 days of their return.
But
So
it
they
says
could-
at a county designated site.
They can't bring their own testing
Mhm.
results in. So technically, we need to have them go in before they come back to work, like their first day back at work, I think would be sufficient.
But do they have to have the result, I guess? Do they have to have that result? before
Well, I'm
they-
hoping that the results are immediate. Yeah,
Why do they have to be tested 7 days?
within 7 days.
During a period of 7 or more days. Must be tested within, okay.
Within 7 days of
I thought
returning,
it
so they
was
can't get tested 9 days before they return. It has to be, they're still looking at that week.
I was misreading. that.
Okay, I mean, that was directly from theirs. That isn't something that I
I
added.
was-
I mean, the whole issue is that they can't go do a rapid test on their own and bring us the results. That doesn't comply with the ETS.
Right.
So my thought is if they come back from vacation, they missed a week, they just go in that first day back, this schedule. I think that would be sufficient.
And you anticipate the tests that,
I hope-
that we're gonna be able to, that whatever we are able to work out for larger scale testing, it's gonna be a rapid result.
That's what I'm hoping. They said it takes about 15 minutes now. The issue is getting all the supplies for it.
Right.
Some of the other testing is taking a couple days. That doesn't necessarily make sense. If you're getting tested and then you have to wait 2 days,
Right.
you know, so I'm hoping, but it all depends on supplies. Yeah,
Further down on the same page, we are still on page 6. Document is the last sentence. Documentation concerning the positive test must be submitted to human resources. It talks about a test or a diagnosis. What should it be, test or diagnosis? I don't know how you diagnose it without a test, but
I suppose we could say or diagnosis. I just figured the test results, they typically get something that says you tested positive. I don't know if anybody would diagnose it as a positive without a test.
I don't either.
I don't. We can add or diagnosis. I mean, typically it's the positive test result is what. And that's just their form. Technically, it's that certification saying they've had it, they don't need to test for 90 days.
So I think, is that a follow-up question? on
Sure.
that? So is that paragraph, is that only referring to if you go to the county designated place? Or if I do an at-home test and I say, I tested COVID positive, and I just let you know, I'm just trying to figure out is that, you know, if I'm not feeling well, can I do an at-home test and come back positive and let you know and say I've tested positive on that. So is that,
Are we requiring documentation regardless, either way?
right,
So-
right. Is that considered a diagnosis? If I do an F1, or is it a diagnosis when I go to the doctor? I'm just, maybe it's semantics, but I just want to know, are we referring to only that information when we go to that county place, or is this?
This is if they tested positive,
any time
regardless.
that's positive?
So employees who receive a positive test or have been diagnosed by a healthcare physician
Sure, okay.
with having it, they're not required to undergo the COVID-19 testing for the ETS for 90 days.
Okay,
So it's like you either have to provide your positive test with the date so that we can calculate out the 90 days, or there's a healthcare form that your provider completes and you submit so that you don't have to do the testing.
okay, thank you.
It's those two things. It doesn't have, it's gonna be the same if they test positive on our weekly tests. They won't have to test for 90 days, is how I read the ETS.
Gotcha. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And then I know you and I talked about the time off if they get sick
Sure.
after vaccination. It seemed like it needed a little bit of clarification, that if someone does have sick time available, that they can use their sick time, they're not limited to just 2 days allowed. But if they don't have any sick time accrued, then they're guaranteed those 2 days if they have a negative reaction to the vaccination. So it's on
Page 5.
page 5. Employees may utilize up to 2 work days of accrued sick leave immediately following each dose if they have side effects. Employees who have no accrued sick leave will be granted up to 2 days of additional sick leave immediately following each dose. I was just concerned that maybe that would be read as you're only allowed 2 days for any negative side effects, regardless of how much sick time you have. I really don't think that was the
The
intention.
intent, no, this was directly from the ETS. You have to provide them with, the employers have to provide them with 2 days off if they have side effects. And if they don't have any accrued sick leave, you have to pay them. That's what it says. You can add something in there if an employee needs more than 2 days, it falls on county policy, their sick leave. I mean, they have that time accrued leave or whatever, if they need more time off. I don't know where they came up with the 2 days. I think that's based on studies they've done. Average, they usually last up to 48 hours following. Sometimes some people don't even have any side effects to the vaccine, so I think it varies by individual. I do want something in there that says up to 2 days that will grant them if they don't have any sick leave, because that is part of the ETS that we have to do. So,
Here's a question. So then if someone does have sick leave accrued, do they get 2 extra days? I mean, is this gonna cause issues with?
I think the thought behind it is there's employers that don't give sick leave.
Uh-huh.
So if you already give sick leave, they can use it. If you don't, you have to pay them for those days, according is what OSHA put in there. I mean, you can word it however you want. I just need the 2 days in there. If they don't have any accrued sick leave, they get up to 2 days paid if they're having side effects. Maybe we just say employees may utilize accrued sick leave immediately following each dose if they have side effects. If they don't have any, they're granted up to 2 days. And leave it as simple as that.
I think that's.
I mean, I don't know what anybody else thinks.
You can make it clearer, it's easier for folks.
Like I said, OSHA put this out to cover everybody with 100 or more, and we all have different
Right.
leave policies. We all have to, so.
Bryce, what were they saying that they can't hear everybody?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can
can we turn the mics on and see if that helps? See if that, especially
They're not
you.
gonna feedback.
Whoever couldn't hear, can you hear now?
Can you hear now? I think the board of health has been using mics.
And Zoom?
Is Lucy on there?
And they haven't been getting the feedback, but I don't think there's.
Somebody just said a little better.
Can you pull the mics closer?
Yeah.
Closer? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody. I don't realize how quietly we're talking. Better?
Linda and Lisa.
Okay, well. Testing.
I know the masks really muffle it too,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Right.
Okay, we'll try to do better. Maybe we should go through the
Yeah,
policy.
we could
and
go
just
back through
talk
and-
about the things
That you want to
to.
update.
Yeah. What did you have so far?
Maybe it would help if you just look directly at the mic when you talk. Don't be looking down.
What are you reading?
Mhm. So I have, the first thing is scope. It's just to clean it up and make it clearer to OSHA. This policy is applicable to all Story County employees. So it won't have the same format as our normal policies, but all Story County employees.
We also talked about the testing requirements. Page 6. I think that's where you brought up, Linda, about having to say positive test or diagnosis. From that, like, well, it kind of says earlier from that by a licensed healthcare provider.
At the top of page 7. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm just, since we're kind of re-going over what I think areas that we were looking at corrections, if I'm correct, was that second to last paragraph on page 6. So it starts with employees who have received a positive COVID-19 test or have been diagnosed with a COVID-19 by a licensed care provider.
Mm-hmm.
Then it goes on to say documentation concerning the positive COVID-19 test
Or
or
diagnosis.
diagnosis.
The other change that I thought we had agreed to was on page 3. And it would be under all employees at the bottom. I think the second sentence should be changed to employees who cannot produce a vaccination card will be required to complete the attestation. And then you can leave the form as it is. And if you can produce a vaccination card and it's legitimate, you don't have to do the attestation form. Then you don't have to have 2 forms.
Okay.
And under isolation guidance, page.
Correct.
I think we're just going to take out. How about Story County will follow the updated CDC isolation guidance. And then say. Do we would take out, starting with the second paragraph, under CDC's isolation guidance, the 10-day issue.
Mhm. So we're gonna remove the actual explanation of the guidance and just put in there that we will follow current CDC guidance on
And
isolation.
looking at this, I think your first paragraph might do it. Meets the return to work criteria in CDC's isolation guidance, receives a recommendation.
Okay.
Keep the first paragraph, and take out the second paragraph.
I'd like to keep in there that if it changes, that we go with whatever
Yeah,
it changes
yeah.
to.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And
I
I
can keep that, yeah.
think it's a good idea to link to that, like you did
Okay,
below. And maybe if we can put the website somewhere so that someone maybe
Okay.
is reading a paper copy can at least know
Go
where
out
they need
there.
to look.
So all you're really doing is taking that second paragraph with the bullets out.
Yep.
And the rest of it is this.
and then the sick leave, under the vaccination piece, we're removing may utilize 2 days, just changing it to employees may utilize accrued sick leave immediately following, and leaving it in there if they don't have any, that we will pay them the 2 days as required by the ETS.
Yeah.
So,
And then I think on your appendix A, you just need to be changed so that second line says, and able to produce flu vaccination, wouldn't that be correct? And unable to.
they're unable, that's why they attesting to it and signing that they don't have a vaccination card.
So you're keeping it the same.
Yep, and we're only requiring it if they
Oh,
can't
okay.
provide proof. If they can't provide their vaccination card, they fill out this attestation saying, yep, I had it on these dates, but I lost my card, is essentially what they're attesting to.
I get it. I guess it was a little confusing because in the middle, you state, check, I have provided a proof of vaccination to my employer, or I have tried to secure proof of records.
I'll take out, I have provided. I'll just remove that.
Yeah.
And they check that they've tried to get it. I don't know how, I'm not sure how you get a replacement vaccination card, so.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's where my confusion came in, I guess.
So I'll remove the box that says I provided it. My first intent was just to have everybody fill this out and staple their card to it. It's not gonna work. We need to keep them separate. So if they've been vaccinated, they have their card, they can submit that proof. If they can't find their card, they can fill out the top. If they're not vaccinated, they just state that at the bottom and sign it. So does that take care of any changes
I think
from
it does.
the draft?
I think it does.
Like I said, it's difficult when it's one policy that they want to cover every employer.
Right.
So I think those minor changes will,
And all the changes, the uncertainty about it getting, down. to where it is.
Yeah.
And that makes it very difficult. But
yep,
we know what we have is, a moving target. I do have a question.
sure.
Remind us if you would, when, if the ETS is upheld by the Supreme Court, when it is that, what are our deadlines? What are we looking at right now?
So the first part that they said was more your policy collecting vaccination status. And my understanding is they will not cite anybody prior to January 10th. So that's for that piece. The other piece was February 9th, I believe.
when everyone
Yep,
needs to be fully
testing,
vaccinated.
the testing would be February 9th. So OSHA will not issue citations for non-compliance with any requirements of the ETS before January 10th. And will not issue citations for non-compliance with the standards testing requirements before February 9th, so long as an employer is exercising reasonable, good faith efforts to come into compliance with the standard. So you have to provide proof you are working towards getting your policy, ready, procedures put in place.
So when do you have to have all the vaccination status information in for employees? January 10th? You have to have requested it or got it in?
You have to be making reasonable, good faith efforts, is what OSHA says. So I did put in here like the 7th, that we can change any dates that the board wants to change. If you want to put January 10th, I don't want to send something out on January 10th. I mean, this is all up in the air. They're not
Right.
hearing oral arguments until January 7th. So,
Right, and I think that's really important to mention, that there's a lot of uncertainty, and that we're working on this right now to make sure that regardless of what happens, we're prepared. We're not springing anything on employees. We're not, we don't have unrealistic expectations of what people can or can't do in a certain amount of time. I think it's important we're talking about this now. I know how hard you worked on this and how closely you've been watching all of that and are continuing to watch it. None of us have good answers, but I'm glad we're at least going to be prepared for whatever happens next. And we don't even know where Iowa OSHA fits in to all of this. If IOSHA has 30 days from this implementation date, what does that mean for us?
all I know is that IOSHA has to adopt this, at least what's in the standard or more restrictive. That's all I know.
It's one OSHA state.
Right, but they
Yeah.
have 30 days to do that.
To do that, but I don't know what the date that's from, because
Uh-huh.
there's been stays issues, there's been delays. So they told us to go with the January 10th date is what anybody's saying. Look at January 10th right now. It might be halted towards the end of this week. We don't, we don't know if there's going to be a stay issued. And then we don't know how long, if there is a stay, how long will it be before the Supreme Court makes a ruling? I mean, that's, and I don't know, I know Ethan's on there. He's a little more up to speed on the court process than I am. It's been difficult. It's just because you start moving, they tell you to start moving towards this and then you have to stop. And then, so there is a lot of uncertainty out there, which is hard for everyone. Yeah.
Amelia, do you have a question?
I do. Thanks. And I apologize. I should have just emailed you, Alyssa. But so this is separate than the mask requirement policy, right? This won't supplant that at all.
Oh, so there are specific requirements in the emergency temporary standard. For unvaccinated, the board does have their face covering policy. And so there is language in there that we comply with the ETS or this policy unless there's something else on top, and there is. The board's policy is regardless of vaccination status. The emergency temporary standard is if you're unvaccinated. So
Thank you. I
That-
appreciate that.
that's where we had to take it a little bit. But yeah, their policy is still in effect. That has not been lifted.
The way I see it right now is we don't have all the information. It would be great to have, but we don't. And we're also looking at deadlines that still are in effect, and we're also looking at the fact it could be considerable fines for not following the ETS. And I know that maybe some people would wish it would wait until the Supreme Court acted, but the Supreme Court is not going to hear it until this Friday. And everything I've seen in terms of the timeframes is we have to start moving on this if we're going to do a good faith effort to comply with the timeframes. I'm ready to make a motion unless there's further discussion.
Not further discussion. I just wanted to make a comment too, in regards to that, since we don't have another board meeting
Till Tuesday.
until the Tuesday after. And, I mean, stranger things have happened, but whether the Supreme Court, when they hear arguments, are gonna make a ruling on Friday, or, you know, whether yay or nay, or if they'll put a stay in place, or what's gonna happen. That's the challenge we're under right now, is that unknown. But yet we still have this OSHA requirement that we have to move forward, or we have to look at.
So tell me, should the policy be into effect January 7th or January 10th?
They won't start fining until after January 10th. So if the board wants to make it go into effect the 10th, which would allow time to, you know, I don't know what the board wants to do if there's a stay issued. That's the other
Well, we don't,
piece of it. We won't know. You might know Friday. And you might not. So you could make it go into effect the 10th. Which means we would change everything to the 10th as far as in that little table.
and are you going to start asking employees for the vaccination card?
I think you can do it voluntarily, but until the policy is into effect, I don't think we can force them, but I've already had a couple people reach out and say, do you want my card? So I mean, they could start getting that in. It does take, it's gonna be a administrative burden to get this all documented. So we're ready if we're ever, if they ever require the documents. So, I mean, as of right now, it'll be a simple spreadsheet. Have the documentation, documents submitted this date, not vaccinated, you know, that type of thing.
So here's how I think I would read this. If we made this policy in effect January 10th, we could be asking employees now, if they have a vaccination card, if they want to give it to us, please give it to us early. But if the Supreme Court does not stay this, or they do not overturn it, we'll need it on January 10th, because that's the day that the policy goes into effect. Does that make sense? Okay, so then I think we should make the policy effective January 10th.
January 10th.
Because the 7th is when the Supreme Court, and I anticipate, who knows, but I anticipate the Supreme Court will act quickly. That makes sense.
And do we have everything in place to be able to start testing employees when?
February 9th, we're getting there. I got the costs associated with it last week. I do want to reach out to a couple of the departments or offices that have employees at different locations, different things like that.
Okay.
So, but we still have a month. Yeah,
Okay, I just know we're gonna get lots of questions
Yep.
about what do I do now? And
yeah. And the testing, you know, if this is sent out, we'll just say, you know, testing information will come out closer to the early February.
Do you want to read that?
Could the board have a special meeting based on the information we receive if needed, given the necessary posting notice?
I'm not sure what given the necessary posting notice means, but we could certainly have, depending on what the Supreme Court does, we can certainly have another meeting if we need to change something. We've had special meetings all the way through the pandemic.
Go ahead and unmute her.
Can you guys hear me? This is Stacy. So my question is if on Friday, if the Supreme Court, if something changes, is there a way that we can have a special meeting if needed? Because I know we're going up against that January 10th deadline. You know, can there be a way that the board can have an additional meeting instead of trying to second guess or trying to predict all the different things that might happen? So that was just my thought. So
I can give at least my answer to that. Of course, we can always have a special meeting, but I do have a motion prepared that has kind of a contingency to it. And
gotcha.
I think that will take, based on what the Supreme Court does, and I think that will take care of it.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you
Sure.
guys.
Thanks, Stacy.
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
I move to adopt the COVID-19 vaccination testing face covering policy with the changes noted in order to comply with OSHA's emergency temporary standard on vaccination and testing 29 CFR 1910.501. This policy will go into effect January 10th, 2022, and will remain in effect until enforcement of the OSHA emergency temporary standard is stayed or overturned by the pending action before the United States Supreme Court.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, Merkin,
Aye.
Hens,
Aye. Oh, I waived the seven-day review.
Oh,
Our normal.
Excuse me, and amend my motion to waive the 7-day review.
I'll second that amendment. I think I was reading it and thinking you read that. in my
No, I
mind.
didn't.
No, it's
Read
all right.
something else. Sorry. Thank you, Shelley.
so do we need to approve the amendment?
Move to approve the amendment. Well, we did.
She already did. Yeah, I seconded it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Merkin,
Aye.
Hens,
Aye.
Basil, aye.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll try to get some FAQs and, I mean, it's confusing, so we'll do our best to get so that it's out there for employees to understand if it's effective next Monday.
And if anything changes, we'll get information out
Yep,
to
absolutely.
everyone as soon as we know.
Yep.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, moving on to departmental reports, no departmental reports or other reports, upcoming agenda items.
I don't have any.
Now we'll move on to public forum number 2, comments from the public on items not on this agenda. The board may not take action on the comments due to requirements of open meetings law, but may do so in the future. Anyone on Zoom would like to provide public comment, please use the raise hand function or *9, or anyone in the audience. Seeing no one, I'll close public forum number 2. Liaison assignments committee meeting updates and announcements from the supervisors. Supervisor Higgins?
Sure. I guess before I give my calendars or whatever, I just want to thank everybody for my opportunity of serving as chair and congratulate Supervisor Faso being chair and Supervisor Wilson as the vice chair. I should have done that earlier, and I apologize for that. I think when you got to get up and move, it just kind of throws off your whole schedule or whatever. But look forward to continuing to work with both of you. I have on my calendar, we have an ARPA meeting tomorrow morning, and then I have a meeting with the Heartland Senior Services in the afternoon. My Wednesday, I'm in the office. Thursday, I have a mini assessors meeting in the morning, and then I have the Heartland Green Bay Pipeline meeting at noon, and then I have a community health meeting in Ames. So I will be in Ames pretty much all day on Thursday with my meetings, and then Friday I have the AEBC meeting, and I'll be in here otherwise.
Thank you. The ARPA work session tomorrow. Have the Chamber of Commerce has a legislative kickoff Wednesday morning, which I was going to attend, I believe. And I'm going to try to attend the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting Wednesday afternoon. Thursday, yes, the Navigator Pipeline meeting at noon. I also, it looks like we have a quarterly orientation of new employees. I don't know if we're gonna have that in person.
We did last time.
Attend that. Got a conservation meeting that evening to discuss, get public input on the Daphne property, what some good uses might be for that. And I think that's then a couple staff meetings on Friday.
I have much the same ARPA tomorrow morning. I have some personal appointments Wednesday morning, so I'll be in later in the afternoon Wednesday. I have on my calendar review proposed budgets with auditor.
I did too. I was wondering about that.
That might be the first proposed schedule that was sent out. I'm not sure, but I blocked it off immediately to make sure nothing else got in there. So I'll double check with Lisa Markley.
Yeah, hopefully that's just a minute.
Yeah,
I did that on my calendar. What time?
9 to 11. And then the IUB meeting, they're having another meeting also in Boone that evening at 6. That's about it. I have an alternatives pre-arrest diversion meeting at the same time as that IUB meeting, so. You know. And then budget work starts Monday. Yep. Off to the races. Anything else you'd like to share? Oh, I do want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to chair and for your faith in me. This is going to be an exciting experience. It's all been an exciting experience. It's been a great first year. I've loved every single minute of this past year. I was thinking this morning that this time last year I was at home getting ready for work, freaking out about what was going to come, and I've really enjoyed it so far, and I'm thrilled to be working with both of you, Supervisor Merkin and Supervisor Hiddens, and everyone, all the staff and everyone. So thank you very much.
Thank you for being willing to share. You'll do a great job.
Anything else?
I think motion to adjourn. Second.
So moved and seconded. Hiddens? Aye. Merkin?
Aye.
Basil? Aye. We're adjourned.
Thank you.